what's on the line in number 25 Oregon versus number 12 BYU? This is definitely one of the best non-conference games across the country in college football. I think for this one, just to take the BYU angle to switch things up a little bit, they're getting ready to head to the Big 12, in the near future here. They were undefeated against the Pac-12 last year, but the best team that they beat was definitely Utah, the defending Pac-12 champions. But now they get a shot at one of the bigger dogs, one of the bigger names in the Pac-12 with Oregon. So especially after signing Kalani Sitake to a contract extension, I think that this is a prove-it game for them to show that they can show up and play in those big venues. They've played all across the country, USC, Tennessee. So Autzon's definitely a home crowd advantage and one of the toughest places to play in the country. And with that, the 20-game home win streak, I'm not saying it's definitely in jeopardy, but that's another thing that's on the line in this game.
Oh, it's definitely. You absolutely could say that it could potentially be in jeopardy because this is a BYU team that's absolutely no slouch. This is a BYU team that is coming to play. They are absolutely looking to prove that they belong. I know I've been hearing talk of being like, oh, could BYU make the college football playoff? Number one, I don't think so. Number two, I think it's way too early to start having that kind of talk yet. But I know BYU is definitely looking. Actually, both teams I think really are looking for that for respect nationally. I think BYU is looking to say it's like, hey, we're a good team. We are somebody who can play with the big dogs, put some respect on our names. And I think Oregon is saying it's like, look, we just had two extremes. We beat up on an FCS team. We got beat by the national champs, but we are still a very good team, and we can still show that we can be a top team in this country.
Yeah, and I think also for BYU, Mark, I don't know if you've looked at their schedule, but that is a rough schedule. Obviously playing against Baylor last week, that was a crazy game. Then you got Notre Dame in Las Vegas in early October. Then you welcome Arkansas, you play against Liberty, Boise State, and then you wrap up the regular season with Stanford. So they have a lot of tests on their schedule, and I think that kind of like you were saying, they want to show that they don't. They play big time football, even though they're an independent as of right now. But you look across their roster, man, they got some 300 pound plus linemen on both sides of the ball. So I don't think that they really resemble your typical independent team. So I think that both of these teams are looking for some respect. I was on Ryan Winter's show yesterday. Sports Chat 503. We got a lot of common fans in our audiences that love the Ducks, and we were talking about I just totally had a brain fart. Give me a second here. About how it doesn't help you to schedule these cupcake teams. I think that with the state of the Pac-12 and where Oregon's at with their image nationally, you want to be tested by the best teams in the country. And I'm not saying that BYU's one of the best teams in the country. I mean, they're ranked 12th. They're certainly one of the best teams in the Western region. So I think that both of these teams are fighting for some respect. And I think for Oregon, this would almost seem like the first real win under Dan Lanning, because like we said, 70-14, not a whole lot that you can take from that one. So I feel like this would be a statement win for either team. But in a way, BYU's already gotten that when they took down Baylor last week. Oregon, they're still looking for that big signature win under Dan Lanning to start the year.
Absolutely, yeah. You need that big win to really solidify that start of the season for any new head coaching staff. And like you said, Max, for BYU, yeah, this schedule is tough. Yeah, you played number 9 Baylor next week. You come to Oregon this week. You have Notre Dame, Arkansas, Boise State, and then to top off the year, you got Stanford. So that's definitely not a cupcake schedule. And I think BYU, yeah, they did have that signature win against Baylor, and they're going to be looking to build on that. I think they're well aware of the fact that people are like, oh, beat some more good teams, then we can talk about maybe making the college football playoff. And then for Oregon, it's like, well, we're still looking, for that signature win for Dan Lanning, but also we're looking for the respect that they think that they think that they deserve as the major Pac-12 team, or as basically the major last standing Pac-12 team, with SC and UCLA going to the Big Ten next year.
Yeah, and another point here, Mark, I think this is going to really tell us where Oregon can go in their season, because I think that you could put BYU, in the upper quarter, upper third of the Pac-12 if you were to just plop them in this conference. I think, USC, Utah, Oregon, Washington State, Oregon State are some of the top teams right now through 2 weeks. But I think that BYU, you can make the argument that they're significantly better than most Pac-12 teams. And then what does Oregon have to do after they face BYU? They have to hit the road, go to the Palouse, and face Cameron Ward and the Washington State Cougars, who just knocked off a ranked Wisconsin team on the road at Camp Randall in Madison. So I think this is a great time for this game to come. It's definitely a test Oregon needs. And I think that if Dan Lanning can get the Ducks, to win this game, it's going to show that, hey, my team can hang around in these big games. Because that was one of the biggest storylines around that hiring, Mark, is that Oregon feels like they're in their championship window right now. But when you have to go through another coaching transition, it's just hard to get that consistency. But I feel like, and you guys can comment in the chat here, I feel like the expectation is at the very least a Pac-12 title, and then Rose Bowls aren't enough. You're trying to make back to that playoff conversation.
Yeah, I think, they are definitely in win now mode. I think getting Dan Lanning was for that win now. I mean, if you're Dan Lanning, you just came off winning a national championship at Georgia, where you were the defensive coordinator, and now you're coming into to build up another program that was already, I think, talent-wise in a very good spot, because Cristobal was is a very good recruiter, as is Lanning. So talent-wise, you're in a very good spot. But also, you need to. I think a lot of Oregon fans are saying it's like, oh, they can get to the Natty right now. Oh, they just got to do this, this, and this. It's like, that's not as easy as it sounds. And I do think that, especially for hiring a coach like Dan Lanning, the expectation is, at the very least, I think making the Pac-12 title game. I think winning that Pac-12 title game and going back to the Rose Bowl would be awesome, but I'm not really sure. I think once we see what Oregon's identity really is and how everyone really gels together, I think then we can kind of start talking more about that. But I think as of right now, we don't know. But I think that this BYU game could really be kind of like the prove-it game for really both these teams.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing eye to eye on that. Just to give some final thoughts here, I feel like some of the expectations for Oregon fans too are to beat Washington. You get the Huskies at home in Kalen DeBoer's first year. They kind of have a prove-it game of their own this week against the Michigan State Spartans, who come to Seattle. Michael Penix's going to face a Big Ten team after coming over from Indiana. So we're going to kind of get a good feel for where that Washington team is at as well. An offense that has struggled in recent years, and they've definitely hung their hat on their defense. But Kalen DeBoer is an offensive mind, one of the better offensive minds out west. So kind of same deal there. So I think that there's a pretty significant amount on the line here for Oregon and BYU, especially when you think of college football. There's only so many games. You only play once a week. So you really got to make the most of your opportunity and on the field. Looks like you had something you wanted to add there, Mark.
Yeah, and one other thing is, if I'm not mistaken, Oregon's also playing Utah at Autzen this year, which is going to be another enormous game.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And they recruit the state of Utah pretty heavily.
Yep.
I saw someone comment that.
Yeah, I think Oregon really gets the two big Utah teams. They get BYU this week. They get Utah later down the line. Utah being basically the class of the Pac-12 after beating Oregon twice last year, pretty badly too, both times.
Yeah, so the Ducks are fighting for some respect in the state of Utah. I don't know what their I want to say it's the Beehive State. I don't know what their state nickname is. But
Sure
someone
you
else
were.
can find that and throw it in the chat if they want.